folks. Click the links for BitChute, Odysee, Discord. It's a good way to keep in touch or to support the channel through crypto, coffee, or the rest. Can Hollywood be trusted with Liberty devices? Oh, hell no. The people in Hollywood are the talking head pundits, those idiots on The View and those type of folks. I can't imagine anyone voluntarily watching that type of show more than once. Hollywood, those type of people, they're mad at people being mean to Baldwin. Who, even on the left, I think there's people on the left who other people on the left will look at and go, yeah, this guy's kind of an idiot. I mean, there's people on the right. Like, we can look at people on the right and, you know, I won't name names in case they're your favorite, but there are a lot of people on the right that, you know, a lot of big chunks of people on the right are also looking at like, oh, God, these people are such idiots. If we could only just put them away some more. Point is, I think a lot of people are saying that about Baldwin. The guy's an idiot. In case you're not up to date, Alec Baldwin produced a movie called Rust. It was a low-budget Western period piece, set 1880, I think, and it cut corners in all the wrong places. Baldwin is a nut job with a very public history of anger issues. It's like, that's just what you want to have happen. That's the actor you want to have around inherently dangerous objects like Liberty devices. Let's just have him juggle chainsaws next time. So he allegedly pointed the muzzle of a loaded prop Liberty device at two people, chambered probably in 45, at two people, and he fired, deleting one of them. And no, in movies, you don't point loaded anything at the camera lady and director. They were setting up a scene where he was practicing his physical movements, the blocking of the set to make sure, you know, the lighting and he's in camera frame, all that kind of stuff. It's got to be practiced. So he was handed the prop, which, keep in mind, is a fully working Liberty device. It has to be authentic. All Baldwin had to do was check the cylinder, pop whatever was inside. It might have been blanks, or it might have been, I don't know what you call them. They're dummy rounds where they look perfectly functioning from the outside, but they don't have any powder or primer. All you had to do is dump all that stuff out, check the barrel for obstructions, and then practice with it empty, and then reload the blanks when you need to, when you're ready to start filming. At the very least, the practice movements should have been done unloaded. I mean, it's like a child would say, yeah, you should probably double check to make sure that thing's unloaded before you start swinging a thing around a set. But for whatever reason, Alex didn't rotate the cylinder and check the loading gate. Cowboy devices are a little bit different from like a top brake, like an English Webley is a top brake where the revolver pops out the top, or you're probably more familiar with the swing side. Like, everyone's got a little 38 swing side revolver that, you know, sits on every bed stand in America. So the old-fashioned cowboy devices are a little bit different, but it's not a difficult task to pop out 5 or 6 rounds and practice with an empty device. It's literally a life and death situation when there is no need to trust somebody who says the device is cold when it's just so easy to check. It's like, hey, is this a prop knife or a real knife? Well, let's push it into a piece of wood and see what happens. You don't push it into a human being. In fact, that should be the standard when you're handed something for a scene. Rotate the cylinder. Oh, hey, look, there's brass in here. It looks like someone loaded a 300 grain 45 hardball. It's as if somebody did it on purpose to plan a tragic accident. That's like, I don't know, every Agatha Christie thing, which, who knows? People did walk off the set for a lot of reasons a couple hours before the tragedy, but in general, this was a very loose set. It was a low-budget set, but it was also there was a lot of corners cut, and there's like a command structure with the director or whoever's in charge of the movie, and if that person is not dominant, and there are a lot of egos on the set, then things get very, very sloppy, and which most films, it really doesn't matter. If you're making a zombie horror film where you're just running away from zombies and there's girls in bikinis and that's kind of the whole thing, you never actually are using Liberty devices, that's fine. But this is a cowboy set where you're using fully functioning hardware. Cannot be a sloppy set. This is an inherently dangerous film, even though it's a low-budget film. Anyway, so apparently they were target shooting these props, which I said are fully working devices, in the desert behind the set, and they were using live ammo, and live ammo was later found on set. Now, these two things actually are not as crazy as they sound. Target practice gets the person familiar with the prop, with how to handle it, safety, how to anticipate the recoil, how to look like. I mean, the only way to look familiar with the device is to, go use it. And if you follow the safety checklist, everything is fine. But you have to follow a safety checklist with something like this. This is a very inherently dangerous tool. And this is a weird production because Baldwin's got a history of violence, and you have him around these Liberty devices. That doesn't make sense. That should be a red flag. But in the real world, you just don't turn down movie roles. You just cross your fingers and you make the best of it. So guys like Baldwin do not like to be told what to do. And the armor is a very bangable 24-year-old idiot who, she's looking a little rough now, but you got to realize people on movie sets are like, anything that moves is a target, and a 24-year-old is very much an easy target. She makes like BDSM TikTok videos. Keep in mind, the people who tell you not to judge a book by its cover are usually 180-pound tattooed people of negotiable affections who say that you don't know their story. Maybe not, but I still don't trust any 24-year-old as an armor, because that's a death wish. So you've got an idiot, violent Baldwin, the negotiable affection TikTok girl, who herself had a history of being sloppy on a set involving these Liberty devices. She let a kid mishandle a prop, which is, again, a real working firearm. Plus, keeping it 100 with you, no 24-year-old woman should be in that spot. At that age, they're basically thinking of dick and social media dopamine. A 24-year-old girl wants attention, and she wants to get pregnant. Treating women as men is a fatal mistake. Half the male population is developmentally disabled, which is bad enough, but keep in mind that means like 95% of the female population is also dumber than those guys. A man in this position would live and breathe it. It would be more likely to be an obsession with him, a life's work. Women do stuff like this until they become mommies. They're doing it for dopamine, for Instagram. Look, women in film. Women can do these things that men can do. It's like, no, they really can't. I mean, you're doing this for a few years until you find your MRS. And it's like, oh, look, mommy was in film for a few years before she started popping out kids. It's like, it's not a vocation for you like it would be for an OCD guy. It's just different for guys. If I was on a set and you told me that this dumb TikTok girl was in charge of hardware, I would prepare my soul to whatever God would be willing to receive me. The reality is, most people just can't walk off a set. You can't afford to do that. Though they're not endless Hollywood gigs out there, and you've got to explain why you walked off a set, and people may or may not accept that explanation. So most people just hope to survive and to get through the movie without catching a high-velocity lead poisoning. Then you get the assistant director who got fired from a prior movie for unsafe prop handling, where someone was injured with a negligent misfire, something like that. Now here's the thing. If you know what I'm talking about with gun safety, some people get it at a core level, and other people just don't get it. If you've never met people who don't get it, it's hard to explain to you. Some people have a hard time looking into the future. They live in the now. It's like explaining to people why you need to put batteries in your smoke alarm, or why if you've got a fire extinguisher in the kitchen, once you put it in place, you don't move it because you need to be able to associate it in an emergency. It's like why it's explaining things to people who just don't. Some people just don't see a day into the future or a month into the future. They just don't get it. And with Liberty devices, it's oh my God, you really have to get that. You have to impress on people how important it is. And if they don't get it, then maybe you should. If you're the armor, like, you want to do anything to avoid a situation like this, even if it means quitting and going to work for Target until something else comes up. And there are some people who have something called oppositional defiance disorder. It's a childhood thing, but it happens in adults because they're stuck in childhood. They have like a child's way of thinking. And nobody wants to be told what to do, but every once in a while you can recognize when there's a dangerous situation and somebody is giving you valid advice, even if they are telling you what to do. It's like, oh, this is danger. I recognize this is valid advice. I'm just going to accept it and thank them, even if I don't like to be told what to do. That's how adults behave. A lot of these people, they have like a knee-jerk reaction to assert dominance by doing the opposite of a very reasonable instruction. I mean, you see it in YouTube videos all the time. So something like this is a cascading series of failures. Ultimately, it's Baldwin's fault. He committed the act. He's been in films for years. He should know to check the cylinders and to just not point it at anyone. That's the number one thing. Is if you imagine, if you never point the muzzle at somebody, you never point the muzzle in a direction that you don't want something to go. That's like the first rule of physics with these liberty devices. And if you obey that rule, then it's someone's not going to get hurt, at least intentionally, unless it like goes through a floor or something. And he failed, and he mortally wounded the director of photography. But then you've got the assistant director who said it was a cold device when it was actually loaded with whatever it was loaded with. He failed to check it. So this is the second injury on a film that he's been involved in. It's also the second injury for the TikTok armorer girl. So it's not as if they should never work in Hollywood again, but why were they all working together on a movie that involves a lot of cowboy stuff? Because in the real world, people don't check backgrounds because that takes time. Time is money. And, most people just don't care. Like people who make movies about making movies for the sake of making a commercial movie are lying about how well the set is developed. If you really want to see how a movie is made, you get somebody who makes a documentary who's filming while a movie is being filmed, and you go like, oh, this is a lot of not idiots, but like normal people who are just trying to make a movie. It's like there's some professionalism. The bigger the budgets get, the more experience you get. But in the like intermediary stages, like below a certain level, there's a lot of things are rough around the edges, like rougher than you would think. Anyway, so the next weird thing is the WUFLU restrictions. They had people in 3 classes, A, B, and C, because it had something to do with the WUFLU, and I'm not up on that because I've been ignoring it these past 2 years. And anything I say on that topic gets the video removed, and I lose the $3 that the video would have made. And I, for one, I totally trust our government, media, reptilian overlords. They have never misrepresented the truth in a material way, and everything they say is holy writ from God. Anyway, they have the hardware and armor and actors all separated from each other. So they go to target practice, then they put the prop in a box, then an assistant director picks it up, hands it to the actor, and says it's cold, empty, but the ADA didn't check it, and neither did Baldwin. So even the concept of saying the device is cold seems to create a situation of detrimental reliance. Why on earth would you trust some drugged out assistant director with somebody's life? Nobody in Hollywood should be trusted. The only person you should be trusted should be you. You should be checking it. He shouldn't say anything about the state of readiness of the prop. Always assume it's live and check it with the actor. Since you're practicing, open the gate, ram the ejector rod, and pop out all 5 or 6 chambers. It's literally life and death, and it takes a minute. Or actually, this is a little crazy, but it's like safe crazy. It would be point the Liberty device in a safe direction in a pile of dirt and pull the trigger 6 times. It would teach people a lesson on safety in a safe way that would make a lot of noise, but ultimately would be safe. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I hope this makes it past the algorithm, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.